All right, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the last event of our employability package. My name is Olivia. There have been a total of 5 panels so far that you must attend in order to receive those 15 engineering PEP hours. Today we have with us Alicia Humbel, a structural engineer at Arcadis, Bunty Cook, a project engineer at Lendlease, and Kushal Lal, a talent acquisition specialist at AECOM. Please welcome these ladies by turning on your cameras. So the first question today will be to introduce yourself a little bit and explain your current role. So we'll start off with Bunty, please.
Hello, everyone. My name is Bunty. I studied civil and structural engineering at UNSW. And my current role is a construction project engineer working on the RAF base up at Tyndall, which is about 3 hours south of Darwin.
Perfect. And Alicia?
So hi, I'm Alicia Humbel. I finished my civil engineering and commerce degree at UNSW in 2017 and have been working with Arcadis since 2016, predominantly as a structural engineer and more recently as a design manager. So my current role is looking at the concept design for a Sydney Metro project.
That's interesting. And then lastly, Kushal.
Hi everyone, I'm Kushal Lal. I'm a talent acquisition specialist here at AECOM. My background's quite different from everyone on this call. So I did a degree in law and arts initially, and then went back and studied design at TAFE and fell into the lovely world of recruitment. So my job, I recruit across the business, from our civils teams to our urban design planning team within Sydney. That's me.
Good to get a different perspective. And so a follow-up to that, what do you believe has been your biggest achievement so far, or something that you're proud of? So we'll go back to Bunty first.
Sorry, I'm going to keep it off mute. I think one of my biggest achievements is learning to be adaptive. So a lot of the experiences I've had have ranged from different roles or different projects or different companies. So learning to be adaptive to your new environment, to your new team, is really helpful to learning new skills and progressing in your career.
Yeah, for sure. And then Alicia?
So my biggest achievement is probably my current role. So I had never been a design manager till the beginning of this year, and I sort of got thrown onto a Sydney Metro project, leading a team of multiple experienced engineers and architects. And although it was a really steep learning curve, I feel like I've really progressed in the role and feel very comfortable in it now.
What was your role previously?
I was a structural engineer on a couple of different projects. One of the big ones was the Victoria Cross Metro Station in North Sydney. So designing some of the structure for that, basically.
Yeah, and then what do you think was the biggest change between structural and design engineer?
So I think being a design engineer or a design manager, you have to have a much broader understanding of a lot of different disciplines, which has been pretty tough, especially because I hadn't really been on many metro projects where I had to understand the different disciplines before. So I think, yeah, it's just getting that broader understanding, and it's more about problem solving and how you can help everybody, really.
Yeah, that's cool. And then lastly, Kushal, what has been your biggest achievement?
My biggest achievement, I think, is the career changes that I've had and being able to be resilient throughout, and adaptable throughout those career changes. I've gone from like the world of banking to non-for-profits, agency recruitment, and now an engineering firm, and being able to, I guess, be resilient and adapt to all those different types of people that you work with has been my, I guess, biggest achievements.
Yeah, so it sounds like the theme here is adaptability. Yeah. Definitely don't stick with the thing you studied with. Got to branch out. So the next question is, if you were to go back to when you were in university, what would you have done differently? First to Bunty.
One thing I do regret is not doing an exchange or Engineers Without Borders. And I know, given the current circumstances, that's a pretty tough thing to say, but I think it's also really important to mention because it goes back to, if there's an opportunity, whether it's an internship or it's an opportunity to work overseas or work interstate, is to make the most of the opportunities that come your way and to take them, because you never know when COVID might happen or something where you can't travel overseas and you might not be able to travel interstate. So even now, if an opportunity comes and you're working from home or you're able to work nearby, just seek it out and see what can come your way.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully when COVID finishes, we can use that advice. And Alicia?
I think I probably would have liked to have thought a bit more about what I wanted to get into after uni. You know, civil engineering has so many different streams and lots of different options. And I think if I'd thought about it a little bit more before, I could have tailored my subjects a bit better to what I wanted to do eventually. So I probably would have picked some more heavy structural design subjects, and it could have helped me build up my base a little bit stronger.
Yeah, well, you ended up in the right spot anyway. So, and Kushal?
I think it's going to sound a bit counterintuitive, but not be as involved, like focus on the academics and do some of the, the outside parts of it. So all the groups and societies, and I feel like I was quite tunnel visioned when I went to uni the first time, that you miss out on some of the things because you're really kind of concentrating on, the grades and the marks, but you're not necessarily involved in all the groups that you wanted to be part of. That's probably one of them.
Yeah, I was looking on your LinkedIn. Did you go to University of Auckland, was it?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Really interesting. Yeah, so join SUCE, everyone. So a bit of a follow-up question to that. In relation to getting an internship or like a graduate role, what tips do you have for the audience when picking which one to go for and how to apply? Bunty first.
I would say, so was the question how to apply or seeking
just any tips you have with the process, and also if you went for any internships or your graduate role?
What I found really helpful for me is talk to your network. So I first got my internship role through my friend's neighbour. So I think if you can talk to anyone in your family, anyone in your friends group who may work in the industry or may know someone that works in the industry, start to build up your network as soon as possible, because some point an opportunity will come up, which is exactly what happened for me. And I got to experience civil design in my first and second year of uni, which was really helpful for some of my subjects. And the second tip I would say is, if you do get that opportunity, or when you do get that opportunity, just to back yourself. Don't worry about not knowing any of the answers. Don't worry about asking 100 million questions. Like, they don't expect you to know everything. So just back yourself, trust yourself, and just go into sponge mode and make the most of the opportunity.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. So same question for Alicia.
Yeah, so I think it's a bit cliche to say, but definitely be yourself in interviews, and remember that the person sitting opposite you who's interviewing you is a really normal, friendly person as well. They're not about to go bite your head off, because I think the good hiring managers really want to see your personality and how you'd fit into the team, as well as the marks that you get, because I think everybody's gone through uni, everybody can prove that they can do the work, but I think they just want to see that something extra as well within your personality.
Yeah, for sure. And lastly, Kushal.
Cool. I'm going to put on, I guess, the recruiter hat for this question, and answer it that way. First of all, I think triple check your applications. You'd be surprised to see how many applications we get that are addressed to the wrong organisation. They're applying for a role with ACOM, but they've said someone else's name, so it's a pure copy paste. Put in an application, letter and align it. There's a lot of times that we have people applying for a bridge engineer intern or a grad program, but in their cover letter, they say they're really passionate about building structures. It doesn't align. So align that. That's, I guess, the first thing And then what everyone else touched on, like be authentic. Everyone's seen your transcript. We know you can do the basics of the role. You've passed your degree, you've got into that step, but we want to know who you are as a person. Like culture in most organizations is so important. And it's not just, do you fit into the organization? It's also just, are you going to go work somewhere that's true to you and you're going to actually thrive and grow in? So be who you are and be true to yourself when you're doing that, and just triple check your applications, because you do get discounted quite quickly if you've just got the wrong details in there. And yeah, that's that. And also put a phone number on your actual CV. Again, and people don't want to take the time to find it. It's hundreds of applications sometimes. So those like basic things get you seen.
Yeah, that's some really good advice. So the next question is, what do you think made you stand out when applying for your current role? So Bunty first.
I would say the diversity and variety of projects and experiences that I've had. So I guess my career structure has been a little bit different to, say, Alicia, where she's gone up in the company and been successful with that and had lots of different experiences. I've sort of jumped around from civil design to construction, between civil projects and building, and now into defence. So I think what made me stand out with the current project when I was applying was just being able to say that I've had a little bit of experience in this and a little bit of experience in this, and I can see a bigger picture of what the project will look like and how to understand how pieces come together. So I think either way, if you can get some form of diversity in internships each year, that will really help in future when you're applying for a job, even just to have a conversation with someone else in your team and slightly understand what they're saying. I think it's really helpful.
Yeah, for sure. And Alicia?
So I had decent marks, but nothing outrageous. But I think it was more my honesty and my people skills in the interview that showed them that I had something more to offer than just being able to crunch the numbers. So I remember in the interview, they asked me, oh, like, what are your hobbies? What do you like to do? And everybody sort of always thinks of the travel thing, but I have completely had a blank. And I sort of told them, oh yeah, like I like to game on the weekends sometimes. And they just laughed on the other side of the table. And I think they kind of just appreciated me being me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure. And Kushal?
Again, my background's probably a little bit random on this one here, but for me, it was my involvement in my extracurriculars. So I'm a committee member in an organisation called Women in Design and Construction. I've been, I guess, with them since they've started up here in Sydney, and quite heavily involved with that. And I think that was something that, ACOM really appreciated and really liked and wanted a bit more information around. And so that became a bit of a talking point. So even, I guess, me coming to ACOM was a referral from someone at WIDAC when I was looking for a new role. So that's how that's how I made my application stand out. But I think what you can take from that is, being involved in those networking groups that are out there. If you may not have that connection through people that there was a lot of organizations that you can also, join, like WIDAC's one of them, but there's also like the NAWICS or the property group. And just they have, early career programs that can also be beneficial.
Yeah, for sure. Specific to engineers, there's Engineers Australia or ICE as well that we had talk earlier this month, and also Women in Design. So moving away from the introductory questions a bit, the next one is, did you face any unique challenges as a woman in the industry in any job roles or internships that you've done? So Bunty?
I can't think of anything specifically. I think what has helped me in the roles I've had from internship to now is being a bit prepared for what the industry may be like. And what I mean by that is, you may go, if you're in construction, for example, you may go onto site and there may be certain language use or certain drawings on things or swearing or something. And I think it's going into the industry knowing that it's not perfect right now, but you have an open mind and you know what is important to you and you know what you want to achieve. And so to stick up to yourself, but also not take it personally if something offends you, and to report it if it is genuinely insulting or something like that. So I don't know if that really answers the question, but I think it's being prepared and having an open mind, but also sticking to your guns and speaking up if something needs to be changed.
Yeah, for sure. I think the industry's changed a lot very recently as well. So we're all very lucky to be going into one that's already sort of set up processes for speaking up. So same question for Alicia next.
So yeah, like Bunty, I personally didn't have any issues. All the people that I met throughout the internship process were really friendly, and I never really felt looked upon differently. The only time that that's ever sort of happened to me is, I think, one of the first times I went on site, because I do look very young for my age. And I sort of felt like I was getting some weird looks, like, you know, what are you supposed to be doing here? Like, are you lost? But, you know, you just like go in there, you do the job, and you show them that like you can do everything that you're supposed to do, and you're really good at it as well.
Yes, 100% backing yourself. The same question for Kushal.
I haven't had any real challenges. I think there's certain things that Bunty's touched on earlier around like language and stuff like that on, you know, that people do. You've got to understand some of the environments that you're going in. But I think a challenge that I've had is a bit of internally like imposter syndrome, where you feel like you don't really belong in that conversation, or, you know, you aren't necessarily someone that's skilled enough to be there. Like, I'm not technical, I'm not an engineer. Like, should I even be part of this conversation? Is this part of someone else's thing? I think that's a challenge that women tend to have. They want to tick every single box for a role, rather than, you know, there's studies on this that men are more comfortable applying for something if they tick 3 of the 6 criteria, while women need to tick 5 or 6 of them. So I think that's a challenge that I've had throughout my careers, where I feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't be in this conversation, or I shouldn't speak here because it's, you know, I'm not the most skilled person in this room. But, you know, that's the only real challenge that I've had. So I hope that answers it.
Yeah, it does. There's actually a similar question about that later on. So thanks for touching on it. The next question is, so Bunty, how do you balance work and personal commitments?
I like to loosely plan ahead on, say, Sunday or something, and just know what's important to you and make time for it. So if it's important for you to see a friend, even if it's via Zoom, for dinner one night, or to go to the gym, or even just to schedule in some new time sitting in the bath or something, I think it's really important to know what is important to you and make the time for it, because sometimes you get really caught up in work and you don't want to get into a cycle where you're doing lots of late nights studying or working or anything like that. So if you know you've got something to look forward to and you really care about it, you make the time, and that'll help you stay a little bit more balanced between your work life and your home life.
Yeah, so scheduling is definitely important. And Alicia, how do you balance work and personal commitments?
So I think one thing that younger engineers are particularly bad at, and I was definitely guilty of this as well, is like having a conversation with your manager if they're asking too much of you. So when you're given a project or a task, I think about how I would tackle it and how long it would take. And if that doesn't align with what the project manager has said, I would have a conversation with them about what we can do about it. And I think it's really scary to have those conversations in the early days of your career, because, you know, your confidence is still being built up, but it's really important to have a think about that and how it's going to affect your personal life as well.
Yeah, we also had a question in the chat. What kind of games do you play?
Jack was right. It is awesome.
Nice. And Kushal, how do you balance work and personal commitments?
So I'm currently studying part-time and working, and a lot of our classes are during the day. So I use my calendar like religiously, and have given people that I work with quite closely access to my calendar. So if I am blocked out for 3 hours and during the day because I've got class, they know that I've blocked out and it's got an out of office there. So there's no expectation for them to expect anything from me. So it's, I guess, communicating with those people and then with myself and making sure my calendar's up to date, so being organised. At the moment, it's easier to balance work and personal commitments because of the lovely world of COVID. But outside of it, it is around scheduling time to yourself. So scheduling, if you've got to go for a walk, make it happen, or try to do it when you have a meeting that doesn't require you to speak, then go for a walk and be outside and do it rather than just sit at your desk all day.
Yeah, I think that's interesting that you share your calendar with others. That's really smart. So the next section of the talk will be focusing on a few issues within the industry, and we'll just hear your opinions. For a bit of context, 2 weeks ago, we held our first Women in Industry panel with 3 senior executive ladies. So the same issues will be asked to you guys, just to see the comparison in opinions. So the first one is what Kushal touched on before, how women often struggle with confidence when starting out in the industry. If you face this yourself, how did you overcome this? And what tips do you have for younger women in terms of putting themselves out there? So we'll start off with Bunty.
As we've all sort of been saying, is having that confidence to be yourself and to trust yourself is probably the biggest one. You will feel like there's so many gaps between what you know and what you should know, and that will come. And I think it's trusting yourself and trusting your team to teach you. And also, as Alicia pointed out before, is to have open conversations with your team to say, hey, I'm stuck, or I don't understand this, and creating that safe environment to just be open and honest, and they'll be able to help you grow even faster when you've got that relationship. So yeah, I would say trust yourself, learn the gaps that'll come, and ask lots of questions.
Yeah, that's some good advice. So the same question for Alicia now.
Yeah, so I'll definitely back what Bunty just said. It's all about asking questions at the start of your career, and people love that you're curious and want to learn things. And it's really about reminding yourself of the things that you've learned so far, and recognize and feel proud of the progress that you've made, because it's a really steep learning curve at the beginning, but you'll find that you pick it up very quickly, and it's good to recognize that. And throughout your career, there will always be things that you don't know, but just think about all the things that you have learned, and yeah, be confident in that.
Yeah, for sure. And lastly, Kushal.
I agree with both what Alicia and Bunty have said. And I think one thing that women tend to use, and I've just used it then, is try to avoid using minimalizing words. It's like, perhaps, maybe, I think, you know what I mean? If you've done something and achieved something, just say, yeah, I've done this. This is something that I've achieved, not, yeah, I think I kind of achieved this. Don't use those softer words. I know it's hard to say because I've just done it as well, but those, little things like that kind of also help improve your own confidence as you talk, when you're not minimizing things that you say. But everything else, I agree, be authentic, just be yourself. End of the day, they hired you for you, as we were saying earlier, so show that at work as well.
Yeah, that's some good advice. I know I definitely have to work on those words as well. So the next kind of issue is, what are your views to companies mandating a minimum percentage of women applying for internship and graduate roles? So start with Bunty.
It's a tough one, because no one wants to feel like they're contributing to a statistic or a percentage in a company. You want to feel like you've genuinely been hired because you're the right person for the role. However, given there is such a gap in the industry for both design, consulting, construction, whatever it is, I think it is a healthy push to get companies to start realising the gap and doing something about it. So it's a tough one, but I think if it's something that will create more diversity within the company, that's a good thing. And also, that diversity isn't just gender, it's race, it's age, it's levels of experience, it's varieties of experience. So it's not just percentage of women, it's just a diverse team overall.
Yeah, for sure. And now Alicia?
Yeah, I agree. It's such a tough question. And to be honest, I haven't quite landed on a strong opinion on this. In my mind, it should be the right person for the job, no matter what gender or background. But at the same time, I really do appreciate that engineering is historically a male-dominated industry, and there may still be some biases against women which need to be corrected somehow. I think doing something like that could help provide an avenue to ensure the unconscious biases don't actually happen. And maybe at some stage we'll sort of get to the point where we don't need them anymore.
Yeah, definitely. Trying to get rid of bias is difficult. I don't think we'll ever be able to entirely, but maybe like marking internships anonymously and things like that will help. And Kushal?
Quite similar to what was said earlier, and around the bias, it's not even the negative bias against women that we need to try to overcome. It's also the affinity bias that people have towards themselves. And the industry is already quite male dominated. So as a hiring manager, someone who's quite senior, they see another young man that comes up that's quite similar to themselves, they're more likely to gravitate towards that person as well. So it's not even looking at the female or someone different in a negative light, it's just shining a halo around the person that's more similar to them. So I think, I think mandating is harsh as a word, but if there's like KPIs or things that are a little bit more loose in the way, that kind of helps that conversation, that change towards having a more equal, I guess, talent pool is what we need. I think mandating something can lead to a sort of resentment and people feeling that they don't belong in that role. But if you've got loose KPIs of having, let's have 50-50 applicants that go to interview and the best person gets the job, that's, a different way of looking at it. But, I think when you do have these conversations where we're bringing it up to the forefront, then people actually start thinking about their own biases, as Alicia was saying, and you really trying to understand. And it's about making that unconscious like conscious and making a thought about what's happening, and hopefully it will lead to more diverse participation and across like women and other ethnic groups and disability and all that type of stuff. So yeah, it's hard with that word mandating because I think it makes it quite negative. But if you have KPIs, which we all have different KPIs for different things, it's worded a little differently.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, because a few weeks ago they were talking about instead of mandating having more of a target. Yeah, so yeah, it's a tough question because you don't want to be like the picked because you're female, but also you have to just go for it, have the confidence, and yeah, take what the industry's giving you. So the next question will be, who is a woman that you look up to within the industry, and elaborate on why. So first for Bunty.
I would have to say the company I was working with a couple of months ago is Roberts Co, obviously Roberts Fertility. And the CEO, Alison Miles, would have to be hands down the woman that I would look up to in the industry. Not only is she extremely strong and intelligent, but she's very driven and very passionate about improving the industry and making it very equal and having opportunities for anyone and everyone. She is probably most known at the moment for creating the 5-day work week on construction sites, which I was very fortunate to work on the very first project of that, which was Concord Hospital. And it was just amazing the feedback we got from our client, from our own team and subcontractors that we worked with, just in terms of mental health, time with their friends and family, fatigue management, and just an overall positive environment to work in. So I would definitely say Alison is one.
Yeah, interesting you mentioned Alison. She was one of the panelists a few weeks ago. Yes, she's got some really good perspectives. So Alicia, who would you look up to within the industry?
So I've always looked up to a woman called Lisa Samways, who is the client development director at Arcadis at the moment. She's an absolute gun and rose up in Arcadis really, really quickly. She came from a structural engineering background, so I suppose I sort of have like a little bit of a link there. But she realized after a few years that, you know, it wasn't necessarily her passion, even though she was good at it. So she started progressing into managerial roles. And I think she really inspires me because she knew what her key skills were and wasn't afraid to go for the roles that she thought she'd be good at. She also has a younger family and has sort of really taken the flexible working into account. You know, works only 4 days a week, even though she's part of the executive leadership team. And yeah, she's always been somebody that I looked up to.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I have to look into her. And Kushal?
You've taken my answer, Bunty, so I've got to think of another person. So I would say it would be Kerry Van Donderen. So she's a COO at ACOM. She's not super senior in her career if you look at her age experience wise, but she's managed to grow within ACOM really quickly, and actually as she grows, really promote diversity within the business. Like one thing, you know, she's someone that will reach out going, hang on, why is this woman hire being paid less than this man doing the same job? What is going on? Like she will question that at all levels and has such a passion for doing that, and is also similar to what Alicia said, someone that realized her skills is quite she's very good at finances, very good at, you know, the operational side of a business, even though she's a trained civil engineer. So she segued into this, you know, career, and she was like the regional managing director of Sydney, and then she's gone over to the COO, sorry. And that's, you know, been inspiring for her. And she's also got, you know, 2 young kids, I think 2 kids under the age of 10. So juggling that and being a COO of this mega business, I don't know how she does it, but she will also be like, I am offline today because I will look after my kids, or I'm homeschooling. Don't mind if someone runs in and asks me for advice. And I think that culture of acceptance and openness allows, you know, other young mums or whatever to also feel comfortable doing that too.
Yeah, that's really impressive how she can juggle, which sort of goes back to our how to balance work and personal commitments question before.
Yeah.
So the next couple of questions will be about the future. Where do you see the industry heading in terms of women's involvement? And like, what would you like to see? And as a bit of a follow-up, what do you personally wish to achieve? So first off, we'll get Bunty to answer.
I definitely think the industry in terms of women's involvement is increasing. Even just the SUCE event that I went to a couple of months ago, there was such a large amount of women there that I met. I think even the numbers in the universities has grown a lot more since probably myself and Alicia were at uni. So it's definitely on the increase, which is good. And I think if we can continue doing events like this and having open conversations of what the industry is like now and what we all want to do to improve it, it will encourage people from school levels through to university to continue their degree and to get into the industry. Something that I would love to do at some point is get into schools and start promoting what it's like to be an engineer or to be in the construction industry or the engineering industry, because I know when I went to school, I had no idea what engineering was. I kind of signed up for engineering and fingers crossed that I liked it. So getting into schools, educating people while they're younger and they're still trying to decide what subjects they want to do will help get more numbers into studying the degree. And in terms of what I personally wish to achieve, I wish to have a significant impact in creating a diverse and equal workplace. So when I become a little bit more senior and I have a team of my own, I really hope that I can create that environment for them and learn from them and just, yeah, I guess assist with improving the industry.
Yeah, that'll be really cool. I think how you touched on going to schools is really interesting, because I agree, it definitely starts at high school. I had no idea what engineering was until probably like year 11 and also just sort of signed up. But yeah, because if we get more girls enrolled at uni, then it'll progress into the industry. So Alicia, you're up next.
Yeah, actually, just a short note, I was completely the same as you. I didn't really know what engineering was when I signed up for it, but you know, I really liked maths and I liked physics, so I thought, oh, maybe this is a good role to go into. and it did work out quite well for me. But yeah, in terms of the industry and women's involvement, I believe it's only going to get better from here. And as someone who hasn't really experienced much discrimination, I think we're already in a better position in that the industry has been in the past. Once the newer generations of engineers start to progress in their careers, I think we'll see more and more women in those upper roles and managerial positions, which I think will really end up helping as well. I definitely agree with what Bunty said about going into schools. I think that's really, really important, especially for women who, you know, are in even junior school or high school. They think, you know, maths is a boys' subject. They're better at it than we are, which is just definitely not the case. I used to tutor at the school that I went to, and there were so many girls who were really, really good at maths, but, you know, they sort of thought like, I can't do, you know, extension 2 maths. And I was like, well, why? And they're like, oh, there's hardly anybody who does it, you know, all this sort of stuff. And I was like, don't let that stop you. Do whatever you're good at. And I could tell that they were good at it. So it would be just like encouraging those girls to not worry about pursuing a career that's in a more male dominated industry. And personally, I think I would love to be able to autonomously lead a multidisciplinary team on a large project. And I think in a role like that, you can, like Bunty said as well, you can sort of help foster an environment that women feel comfortable in and that anybody feels comfortable in, really. And you can try and lift people up with you and sort of, yeah, bring them along and watch them progress as well.
Yeah, that's really cool. I hope it happens. And yeah, I think that's really cool what you said about tutoring, because yeah, the girls sometimes do lack confidence in, like you said, primary school even. I know I was a bit intimidated by like the males in my maths class in primary school. And yeah, to have someone just kind of slap it out of you is what you need and give you the confidence. And Kushal, you're up next.
So 2 things I want to touch on here. First, you guys said about schools programs. So WIDAC's actually about to run this program about getting engineers and stuff into schools, and starting off with, I guess, year 8, year 9, that age group, into like a lot of the girls' schools, initially in Western Sydney, and then I guess going further from there. So happy to connect if you guys want to get involved in that one. So that's there. And I think there's a lot of programs like that starting at the moment. I know they're in pilots and they've been on pause because of COVID and there's all the disruptions around it. But there's like a women in STEM type thing as well, where we go in, I think ACOM's also part of the group that do it, but they go in and they spend a day in school, like primary schools, and play STEM activities. So you know, Lego, and then kind of like show that that's connected to the industry in this way. And it's done through showing what STEM is and what the industry is, but via play, because it's for quite early, like, you know, primary school kids that are quite young. So those programs are starting, you know, they're kicking off. They were, I guess, a little bit more active pre-COVID, but we haven't had the chance. But yeah, it's good that, you know, people are passionate about doing that, because there is a push around, you know, getting the industry into schools, and understanding that people don't have the same opportunities as other people, and that you don't, you know, if you live in certain areas, you may not necessarily know all the career options that are out there, and that, you know, that construction or engineering is seen in one specific way, and there's so many, like, you can do so much with an engineering degree as well, so you don't necessarily have to do one thing. Your career isn't so linear. So that's a piece that is starting to happen, but it's just slow. But I think the industry is getting better. I haven't, you know, been around that long in the industry, but just seeing, you know, when I speak to people around the organization, and you hear sometimes something said and then someone will call it out, and that's just done organically. It's not needed any prompt from like HR or anyone else, but someone in the team will call out something that's been said that's inappropriate against somebody. And I think things like that just shows that there is just a natural shift, and I guess a positive shift for women and women's involvement and participation. And which is what we want. Where do I personally wish to achieve? Again, it's going to be quite different from everyone else in the call, but I kind of want to go into organizational change management. So looking at, what organizations can do and how we can get from A to B, from culture, diversity, all of those type of things. And that's really what I'm passionate about. So that's what I want to get into.
Yeah, that's really cool. And those programs you touched on are really interesting. I hope they do well. So the last question actually, what advice do you have for females who will be entering the industry? So like one piece of your hottest advice. So Bunty's up first.
I would say don't be afraid to ask questions, speak up and stand up for something that you don't agree with, even if you're entry level. If you see something that just doesn't feel right or makes you really uncomfortable, or you see something between two other people, I would raise it, because if it goes quiet and something comes out of it, or it's something that could have been stopped for somebody else, you could have had some kind of input in that. But in terms of your own learning, I would say, yeah, just be really keen, have positive attitude, lots of energy, try and get involved in everything. And if you make a mistake, just say, hey, sorry, I made a mistake, oops, and people will help you. They don't expect you to know everything. People will happily sit you down and teach you, and then you're going to grow so much faster because you put your hand up and you said, sorry, I made a mistake. So I don't know, I would say positive attitude, get involved, don't be afraid to speak up and say you made a mistake, and just have fun, have lots of fun.
Yeah, for sure. You have to be vulnerable sometimes to get the most out of something. And Alicia, you're next.
I would say just be yourself, believe in your abilities and what you learn, and don't be afraid to show people how awesome you are, because I'm sure you all are coming out of uni, and I find it's really hard for younger engineers to do that sometimes as well.
Yeah, some great advice. And Kushal?
It's, I guess, echoing the same thing as before, like just be yourself. You're being hired for you. That's, you go through a recruitment process, you go through all of that. And the reason that you're in the role is because of who you are. So be you at work. Ask lots of questions. I think Bunty touched on this earlier. More senior engineers love us answering questions, and they love the enthusiasm that a junior shows when they're asking lots of questions. So ask lots of questions. You're not being a nuisance. They want the questions. So ask them and own, if you have made a mistake, say it. No one's going to judge you. It's fine. They're just going to help you figure it out and then move on. So they're the three things.
Yeah, so that's some really good advice. So that concludes the interview part. Thank you for your great opinions today. I'll hand over to Sangeetha to start the Q&A.
Up here is for Kushal. Shirley asked, I went to URA and EGS as well. What appealed you to move to Australia to continue pursuing your career?
Oh, perfect. Another EGS girl. So I was from Sydney. So I was born here, grew up here. And then my mum moved to New Zealand to work on their project. So I kind of was just tagged along with her, and then finished uni, and then kind of came back because I was bored. And I also found that New Zealand has a bit of a brain drain. So once you finish uni, everyone leaves and goes somewhere else. So I thought it was time for me to go somewhere else. That's basically it.
Makes sense. Yeah. The next question is from Jack, actually. So if you feel like you've been discriminated against in your role, how would you address this situation? Maybe Bunty starts off.
I don't feel like I've been discriminated against in my role, but if someone came to me who had been discriminated, or if that situation came up, I would find someone that you trust and talk to them about it. I would talk to someone maybe outside of your workplace as well, just to get a second opinion, and write down whatever happened so that you have a record. Because if you feel like you've been discriminated against or something's happened, you may be feeling a lot of heightened emotions, and so you want to write everything down, and so you don't forget anything in case, you know, something changes or whatever. So I think it's really important just to have someone that you can talk to and trust, and then they can help you escalate it if you need to, talk to HR or anything like that. But definitely find a buddy to talk it through with you, so you don't feel alone when you're going through something like this.
Yeah, of course. Alicia, do you have anything to add?
No, I agree with what Bunty said. And I think it is quite important to write things down, just so that, like, if things ever do get escalated, you have some evidence to back yourself up. But personally, in my role, I've found that my managers have been really helpful, and even though it hasn't happened to me, like, I know that they would be really good about it. So it's just making sure that you do raise the situation and don't let it just go away, because it could be a recurring problem, and you don't want it to be, basically.
Yeah, of course. Kushal?
Yeah, I agree with Bunty and Alicia. Keep a log. You don't know if it's going to be escalated or where it needs to go. You know, keep track of it. It's also good maybe for you to double check to see if there is correlation, or, you know, just later on when your emotions aren't there and you can take a step back from it and go back and have a look at it. If you genuinely feel like you've been discriminated against your role, you need to speak to your manager. Or if an organization, like at ACOM, we have a manager and a buddy. So you have two different people that are more senior to you that you can go speak to. But ensure that you speak to someone else within that organization that can help you, because, you know, if chances are, it sounds bad, but the person discriminating against you is probably also discriminating against other people within the organization. So not just to help yourself out, you're also going to help someone else out. So speak to your manager, speak to someone more senior, and, you know, I guess get some professional, I guess, more senior help around it.
Yeah, that's some solid advice. So the next question was, how do you decide which avenue of civil engineering to get into? Because I feel like I enjoy everything and it's so hard to decide. Maybe Alicia starts off with that one.
Yeah, so I think try and do some research about what each sort of civil engineering stream, where it will take you and what kind of jobs it can get you. And then have a look and see what sort of projects that you'd be interested in and what kind of lifestyle you'd like. So I know Bunty's on site, so there's a lot of site work and face-to-face, which is great. And my role is probably more behind a computer, which I don't like as much, but I like the work. So you sort of have to figure out what fits into your personality and what you'd like to see and what you'd like to be doing day to day. And I do find it really helps looking at some projects that have been done by some of the big consultancies or construction companies, and see if anything really like sort of jumps out at you, and think about what you would like to have an impact in.
Yeah, makes sense. Kushal, do you have anything else to
add? So obviously I'm not an engineer here, but I think engineering is so broad, and civil engineering itself it's huge. Like I get baffled sometimes about how many different streams of civil engineering you can go into, and I recruit within it day in and day out. But I think understand what the expectations are. Like if you're going in as a utilities engineer or a bridges engineer or a buildings engineer, like see what type of projects that you'll actually be doing and see if they actually inspire you. Because in your interview process, they'll ask you, like, why did you want to be a bridges engineer? And if you don't know, that means you're not really that passionate about it and you may not get chosen for that role. So I guess look into the types of projects you can be working on in that organization. Will it be, you know, some mega projects on bridges, or will it be that, you know, some people really love doing small projects because they get more ownership over it. Like think about it that way. Like where do you want to go? What are you really passionate about? And then take a step back and apply from that regards. And also what you start off at as a grad isn't what you're going to do for the rest of your life. You know, it's not, you're going to get experience and then you're going to go somewhere else to get some more experience. And then, oh, you're going to be put on this project because the resourcing required to be on that project, get more experience. And then slowly, you know, maybe when you're 5, 8, 10 years down the track, then you're like, oh, actually, I want to specialize in highways because that's what I like. And that's what you find when you see lots of CVs. You see them doing different things, dabbling away, and it's all relevant.
Yeah,
I hope that answers.
Yeah, that was a very good answer. Bunty?
I would say if you have an opportunity while you're at uni to talk to your lecturers as well. So while you're in your final year, if you can find, say, like, for instance, my last years were mostly construction management and coastal engineering. And that was purely because I was really interested in both of them. And I'm not doing coastal engineering now, but it was really interesting. And I think had I not done that subject, I wouldn't have known if I wanted to do it or not. And I could have gone down the path of getting into a job like that and realizing I didn't want to do it. So part of uni and the lecturers that you have access to is also to help you try and figure out which stream you want to go into. And you could even get an internship as part of that. And as Kushal was saying before, what you do as your internship or your grad is not going to be what you do forever. It might be, but it doesn't have to be. So perfect example is, for me, I started doing civil design at a small company, and I thought I was going to be designing culverts and roads forever, and it was so much fun. I loved it, but then I realized I wanted to get into construction and try something new, and I'm so glad that I had that experience, but without trying it, I wouldn't have known. And so I guess speak to your lecturers, speak to people in older years, get their opinion, and then just see if you can get an internship or a grad role in something that you're interested in. And if you've had enough of it or you want to try something new, there's no shame in switching to a different role.
Yeah, I agree. Alicia, do you have anything to add? Oh, sorry. I think you.
Yeah, but I do second what Bunty and Kushal were saying. I completely agree. You have so many opportunities in your career to have a look at different areas. So don't worry about making the wrong choice or wanting to pick a couple of different things, because you should be given an opportunity at some stage to switch if you want to.
Yeah, of course. So the next question is from Irvin. Do you think enough is being done by males, especially in senior positions, about gender equality in engineering and construction industry? So I'll hand it over to Kushal.
I think yes and no. I think there's enough being done for now. I guess it's, there's enough is a relative scale. So there's always more that can be done, but there's a lot of steps being taken at the moment. There's a lot of around champions of change, which is, male-led with female participation. It's an interesting concept, but it's about increasing female participation, but having men actually lead that conversation, because, unfortunately, they are currently the senior people within the organizations. So, they sponsor females and go through that way. But I think there is quite a bit being done. There's always, we could do more, but I think men are on that journey with us. I think one of the examples that I thought about when this question popped up was, I was just sitting at work one day, and, someone was talking about putting someone on a project, and the PM was like, oh, but isn't she really young and she looks quite baby-faced? And the project director, she wasn't around, the project director turned around and was like, would you ever say this about any of the guys in the team? And the PM was like, oh, I didn't mean it like that. He's like, no, you did. So you need to back off and not talk about her baby face, but talk about her ability. And this was past work hours, there's no one else around. I don't think they realized I was there, because I was quite hidden and buried in what I was doing. But they just had that conversation, and it was quite natural, and was a call out from someone quite senior to someone that should know better. And those type of conversations happen. And I think, men are part of that, and it's good to see people calling things out.
Yeah, that comes back to what when you mentioned earlier about biases and how important it is to call out and recognize your biases.
100%, yeah.
So Alicia, do you have to say?
Yeah, so I think men also have a role in focusing on giving equal opportunity, whether it comes to hiring or even resourcing on projects as well. So occasionally, not that I've experienced this, but I've heard that other people have sort of experienced that, the younger males will get a better project than a younger female. So I think it's about people in those managerial positions making sure that they are giving equal opportunities to everybody. And yeah, I think calling things out, like Kushal said, is really, really important for males in senior positions. And I am seeing that more and more as well, which is really great.
And finally, Bunty.
Yeah, as we've just been saying, I think it's really important to call out anything that is just old school, ingrained in the brain, and it happens and it is going to happen for a little bit, but we need to have the confidence to call them out, as Kushal was saying. And one of the key things I've learned recently to do with leadership is that it's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. So you could preach all day long that you care about equality and you want to have a diverse workplace, but if you tolerate people having foul language or caring more about someone's appearance than how well they'll fit for the job, then they're not actually doing what they're preaching. And so I think if we can all sort of have a bit of confidence and support each other to say it's okay to call somebody out, even if they're 3 times my senior and really scary, it's through that conversation that we're going to improve the industry as a whole.
Yeah, I love that quote. It's not what you preach, it's what you tolerate. I think that would be the final question. So I might hand it back to Liv to conclude. Thanks for your amazing answers.
Okay, so this wraps up the final event for the employability package. Congrats to everyone who came to all 5. I want to say a big thank you to Bunty, Alicia and Kushal for taking their time to come along tonight. We really appreciate you sharing your opinions. And this concludes it. So I hope everyone has a good night.
Thank you so much for organising.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank
for
you.
organising and having
good luck
us.
to everybody as well. Hope to see you in the industry soon.
Yes, for sure. All right, I'll close the meeting. Bye, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.